at this point of time a bit of rest as the markets in their volatility keep moving up and down. We'll now join Mr. Feroze Azeez, Joint CEO at Anand Rathi Wealth, to gauge how the market pulses at this point of time. Namaste Feroze ji, and a very warm welcome to you, sir. A proud moment for India. Thanks to its armed forces, it reacts very aggressively, yet in a measured manner, to the perfidy that we saw in Pahalgam. What do you think have been the market reactions at this point of time?
Namaste, Shailji. Like you rightly said, it's a proud movement to every Indian that we're not going to take it lightly. And lives lost in Pahalgam should not be a strong message has to be given to any country which is actually promoting terrorism on their soil. So I think I'm very proud today, point one. Point two, now comes the market reaction to each of these. I personally think that people, contrary to people's expectation, equity markets have done well, right? Be the Trump case or the tensions between India and Pakistan. To everyone's surprise, quite a few people called me in the morning as clients saying that what will happen to my money? Nothing much would happen because 4, 5, 7% volatility in markets don't need a reason, right? So why does it happen like this? Why is it so contrary to the expectation of the retail mass or the HNI mass that markets are not reacting negatively as much as you would expect in the past? There are two strong reasons, very little spoken in the media. One is the news of any kind does not decide the reaction. When it comes is what decides the reaction. For example, in 2009, Satyam case had broke out. That day, you would be surprised that Sensex fell only 1% or 1.5%, if I remember. That is because if a large company like Satyam, which was a part of Sensex and Nifty, tells you something so trivial as a fraud that FD receipts were fudged and still we fell by just 1%, not a lower circuit, was because Sensex had already fallen from 18,000 to 10,700 because of the global financial crisis. Similarly, in current situation, FIs have already pulled out 4 lakh crores on the pretext of valuation. So this news had not had an impact because FIs have already sold. If they had not sold, then this was good enough reason for you to have a 5% down today. Or Trump's trade wars could have actually brought us to lower levels since we had already returned that money. That's point one. Point two, there is a net short circular, which again, I don't know why market participants hasn't respecting enough and thanking SEBI and NSE to have that circular in place. In India, you cannot have a short position beyond 2,25,000 Nifty. That's a 500 crore limit unless you show a long position of equal amount to get the 500 crore notional breached. Or secondly, if you can actually have a call long position is when you can permit short positions. So these are the two reasons why. For the last 5 years, if you look at the second point which I made, the short circular limiting anybody, nobody can wake up in the morning and say, I want to short India or short Nifty unlimited. Like in the US, you can, in Japan, you can, but in India, you cannot have a short limit greater than 500 crore notional, which is a very small limit. 500 crores sounds big, but in derivative notional values of 500 crores are 2,25,000 Nifty, which is hardly anything.
Right. With this background in mind, yes, this is the graphics that we had prepared early morning, alluding to what Feroze is talking about, the market reactions on the day of an important event that happens in the world of militaries between India and Pakistan. This today is a very knee-jerk but a very mature and sensible reaction that the markets have given. Now, Feroze, that we have this out of the way, and the markets seem to be at least a bit calm now. How are you analyzing mutual fund portfolios? Anything that has caught your attention which deserves mention for our viewers, and anything that you have added in terms of mutual fund recommendations to your already very nice list?
Shelter, two things I like to highlight. On the mutual fund side, equity, the most important question which comes to one's mind is because sector funds are not so much of a flavor. But if you look at the assets, largely people decide between mid cap, small cap, and large cap aggressively. So I would say there's almost an equilibrium between these three segments, which has emerged in this calendar year. So now my inclination towards a large cap vis-a-vis a small cap, which was higher in December, has now come to a state of equilibrium. That's point one. Point two, on the debt side, I use your platform to highlight that there are some debt funds where there is a part in arbitrage fund, so taxation becomes so much more efficient. So choose funds which have 2/3 in debt and 1/3 in arbitrage, which will behave purely like debt, but the taxation will be 12.5%. So that's something which I would like to highlight, and so that's on the debt side. And from a direct equity standpoint, we did a very interesting study. In when things are uncertain, because today the India's attack is established. Will there be retaliation? What kind of retaliation? What kind of threat of retaliation is still a little unknown. Whenever there is uncertainty, buy businesses which are stronger during bad days. And when markets are good, buy momentum. Price, when markets are bad or uncertain, buy businesses. How do you identify the stock is related to businesses? Last 1 year, which were the worst 10 days? You did a study, found out which were the worst 10 days. On those 10 days, how many stocks in NSE Small Cap 250 were positive? अगर बुरे दिन पे स्टॉक ऊपर होता है, इसका ये तात्पर्य है कि उस कंपनी के ओनर जो हैं, वो मार्केट को देख के उसको खरीद बेच नहीं रहे. So they are buying the business rather than the price of the stock. So those are businesses best to own, where the free float is not into some speculative hands. The free float is in the hands of a good, strong owner, right? So there are 10 worst days. Just list them down and then see. And then you will see which are the positive stocks. Those are better businesses to own. If they're already in your portfolio, be happy about it during uncertain times.
I think this is a fascinating study that Anand Rathi Wealth would have done. Now, if you can just open the curtain and let us know a couple of stocks in the NSE Small Cap 250 index that were positive, if there were some commonalities in the 10 days that you've spoken about, the 10 worst days in 2024 for the market, and an opposite contrary view. Look at those 10 days and find out stocks that were positive in the Nifty Small Cap Index. Any names that recurred consistently, Feroze?
Yes, Shelji, of course, we did a further study and found out in these 10 days, which are common, like you rightly asked, there's one stock which, there are two stocks which appeared 3 times out of those 10 days. Okay, I'm not supposed to give stock recommendations, but I'm surely sending you this list as soon as...
Yes, this is mathematical data.
Okay, this is mathematical data. Alubus Life Sciences Limited, which appeared 3 times with a beta. The risk of this stock on a beta basis was 0.38. It has a free float of 25%, which is 3,336 crores, and a market cap of 13,342 crores. So this
what
is
was the
first
name?
Stock. Alubus Life Sciences, ALIVUS Life Sciences Limited.
Alubus Life
Limited.
Okay, my apologies. I'm hearing the name for the first time, but let's just yes, Alubus Life Sciences, the one that is trading at 11.15 today.
Yes, good.
Yes. So, okay.
Yeah. So I will send you this list, shall in this up. And then you can probably in any of the shows. I'm sure आप इससे हमारे से ज़्यादा अच्छा dissect कर पाएंगे. I'm just giving you some information.
But what an interesting thought, Feroze. Let me just repeat the exercise that Mr. Azeez has helmed at Anand Rathi Wealth. So, in the last calendar year of 2024, they have found out the 10 worst days in which the market has fallen. On those 10 worst days within the NSE Small Cap 250 index, they have found out stocks that have risen. Now, the logic is that on those bad days, if these companies are really good, then sensible people would be buying into them given the fall in price. And they've highlighted 10 stocks, out of which 2 or 3 have been consistently present. One of them is Alubus Life Sciences. I'll try and get this back on the exchange. PCR, it's spelled as ALIVUS Life Sciences Limited. The other stocks, Feroze ji has promised on air that he will send them to me and I will put them on Twitter. The all-time high for Elivis, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think so we can show it on screen. There must be some issue with the data, is 1300 rupees, and till very recently 5 weeks ago it was available at 884, today at 1115. What a wonderful exercise, Feroze ji, my compliments. What other such wonderful things have you done to find out true value in the market?
Yes, Shanji, what we also do is when there is a large change in ownership. Now, for example, there are quite a few businesses which go through a lot of ownership change during market falls. Like January to March was a very happening period where there was a lot of stocks changing hands. Now, for example, you take a stock where FIIs have sold, and if DIIs have bought, that's a stronger business. There are some stocks where FIIs have sold, but retail and others have increased their ownership. That's a weaker stock and doesn't bounce back so easily. So like I was analyzing one stock because one of my client owns 100 crores of that stock. So he said, please isko thoda aap dekhen, iski demand supply samjhe. मैंने कहा sir, price valuation ठीक है. Valuation transpires in 3-4 years. But वक्त किसके पास है? सब लोग impatient हो जाते हैं 6-6 महीने में, 3-3 महीने में. So demand and supply के आधार पे एक price का निर्णय होता है. So I was looking at this. This one I can tell you. KPIT is the business, right? Where the FIIs have sold, and in December the FII ownership was 21%. Now the ownership was 17%. FII ownership. Now ये 4% गया किसके हाथ में? वो देखना बड़ा जरूरी है. अगर ये 4% रिटेल के हाथ में गया है, तो I would not be so positive on the business. अगर ये हाथ बदल के FII से DII के हाथ में गया है, इंसिडेंटली इस स्टॉक में FII की ओनरशिप कम हुई, उतने की उतनी DII में बढ़ी. तो अगर ये होता है कि one institution handed over the shares it owns to another institution, that's a stronger bounce back and stability. If that was handed over to retail, I would be a little more. So when shares change hands, which hand gave and which hand took will decide what kind of bounce backs and stabilities lie ahead.
Right. Feroze ji, just a moment, just as you speak, please allow me to mark one important event. This is the cabinet, Union Cabinet that Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi is chairing. The visuals are right there in front of you. He shared the details of the military strike that India has conducted on 9 military targets within Pakistan and Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And this is the visuals that are coming there on your screen. We'll now show you the chart of KPIT Technologies. This is another research stock that Anand Rathi Wealth has found out. A very simple but powerful logic. If FIIs are selling and reducing stake, who's buying? If that money is coming in from DIIs, that it means stronger hand is giving to a still stronger hand. But if the money is going in the hands of retailers, that is not something to be looked at. KPIT Tech is up 1.8% today. I'll request the PCR to kindly fire the longer term chart of KPIT Technologies over the last 6 months. So between December and March, FIIs have sold and DIIs have bought an equal amount. To you, Feroze ji.
Yes. So this is just for illustrative purpose. I was saying after a fall of 10, 11, 12%, you would want to see whether this is a still strong stock or should you want to have a stop loss. So this helps you determine. This doesn't tell you where the stock will go. It will at least tell you where the stock will not go. All right. So people don't do this analysis and they still hold large positions. This is one of the illustrative second analysis which is needed. People have to get into the depth of ownership and the free float to not get surprises from stock price movements.
Okay, fair point. So this is KPIT Tech and Alivus Life Sciences that are being discussed. Any more gems, Feroze ji, that you can share? Remember, actually Feroze ji talks about mutual funds and schemes in particular, but today he is giving you wonderful insights into stocks that you can actually look at based on very critical but wonderful research. Over to you, Feroze ji.
So these are stocks. I'm just highlighting the ways of looking at it. I'm trying to intrigue the viewer to get into the deeper analysis of ownership and what kind of strong ownerships should you buy price, should you buy business. These two come out as a data being pulled up. Now coming to see when you're recommending mutual funds, and if there are 660 odd equity mutual funds index and active managed, underlying is still a stock. So if I have to have an opinion on a mutual fund, which is a basket of stocks, devolving as a research team the full responsibility of the underlying and saying fund manager karega, मैं सिर्फ उसकी भाषा समझूंगा, उसकी काबिलियत समझूंगा, may not get the best output for our clients because we are in the top 10 mutual fund distributors in the country. So I'm responsible fiduciarily for a large portion. That's why we get deeper into the underlying of the mutual fund in certain forms and fashion. But coming back to what should you do? Again, I'm reiterating what I've already said. Buying small cap is not so bad. Now, yesterday's inflow, in day before yesterday's inflow in small cap is 220 crores for that single day. We algorithmically try and compute what money came in a specific day before AMFI and SEBI also get to know. How do we do that is a separate story, but 220 crores approximately came on Monday. So what is Indian retail and HNI doing is they're doing something very smart. They're still buying small cap when there's uncertainty. That means they are not so bhauk and emotional like they would be 10 years back. 10 years back, if there was uncertainty, people would not touch small cap funds with a barge pole. Today, they're buying on Monday when there was epitome of uncertainty of an attack. So be very clear that India's capital markets are going to be far more robust than they have been in the past. So your anxiety with respect to events should be significantly lower. Don't derive your experience from past. And in the past also, when these 4-5 events of Pakistan and India tension has happened, the fall, like Shailendra ji said, was very small. And they recovered before the event is over.
Okay. Feroze ji, this 220 crores that has come in the small cap space, let's take the question into two parts. What, according to Anand Rathi Wealth, is the top 2 or 3 small cap funds which can be looked at now? And of the 220 crore rupees that came in the day that you mentioned, where did the money go the maximum?
So I can tell you 2 funds which I like, because in small cap we have this one principle: whenever you buy a small cap, try to buy it in a company where the CIO is managing the small cap fund. If I'm buying an HDFC fund, the CIO, Mr. Setalwad, is the fund manager for small cap. If I'm buying Invesco small cap, Tahir Badshah, who's the CIO, is the fund manager in the small cap. अगर मैं small cap खरीद ही रहा हूं तो रिस्क ज्यादा है, तो उस कंपनी के सबसे काबिल आदमी की अगर मुझे फंड मैनेजर सर्विस मिले और फी उतनी की उतनी देनी पड़े, तो मैं उसको क्या ना चुनूं, क्यों ना चुनूं, ये मेरा प्रश्न उठता है. That's the आधार, one of the small आधार on which these 2 schemes are attractive.
So Invesco small cap fund run by the Badshah of small caps, our common friend Mr. Tahir Badshah, and of course the HDFC small cap fund run by the CIO of the AMC. So these 2, ladies and gentlemen, we'll analyze in detail, and this is what which have been coming up at Anand Rathi Wealth. This takes care of the small cap space. Now, Feroze ji, let's tackle the other 3 segments, which is large cap, mid cap and international funds. How are you looking at this space? Now, you say that the bias that you had towards large caps in December is even Stevens between large and small. But what are the large caps or flexi cap funds that will remain on the top of your radar?
Very contrarian, want large cap, whose performance has been reasonably bad, would be my large cap pick. It's a small scheme, concentrated large cap portfolio. It has taken the disadvantage of the concentration because it has not been into banks. It has been largely into names like Reliance, Bajaj Finserv. These are the top holdings of that group. They have not done as well. So I personally think there's a potential of future prospect in this quant large cap. If you look at past performance, you would curse me to be even recommending it on the basis of past performance. But yeah, it's higher probability of future bounce backs is what I'm trying to do that on the basis of. And the mid-cap space Kotak emerging fund, quite a few people didn't believe in this recommendation. It's been a part of our portfolio for 4 or 5 years, but Pankaj Tibrewal, who was the fund manager, moved out, but we still stuck our guns. and stayed in this fund because the underlying portfolio which Pankaj Saab had created had the longevity of a year to year, and the new fund manager was great to use that runway to build performance potential for future. That's why Kotak Emerging has been in a mid-cap recommendation and done beautifully well. Quant large cap also we entered, but it's not done too well, but I still think that it can have a reasonable potential over the next 1-2 years to beat Nifty.
Okay, so again, one of the funds that we've discussed many times is Kotak Emerging Equity, and Feroze ji has his sights firmly on it despite the change in fund manager. Of course, Mr. Tibrewal has now set up his own PMS, which is doing fabulously well. But as Feroze mentions that the portfolio that he had created, the runway remains as robust as ever, and the new fund manager is doing immensely well in that one now. Flexi caps and large caps, Feroze ji, 1 or 2 picks there.
Flexi cap mein HDFC Flexi cap. Contrary to people's belief, I would again say that that's the fund which is very large size and it's your favorite fund. It's been a part of your portfolio.
Yes.
And that is done so beautifully. Surprisingly, if you look at the scheme return, it has beaten Nifty by 5% from 1st of April 2024 in the last year and 1 month. It has beaten Nifty in spite of the broader market not supporting. It has beaten the tougher benchmark of Nifty. I think that's the flexi cap I'll continue to recommend unless I see signs of some change needed. It's not needed. If you look at large and mid cap, SBI large and mid cap is another fund which one could consider.
Okay, and Feroze ji, I must tell you this as a personal recollection about HDFC Flexi Cap Fund. This was, of course, earlier called HDFC Equity Fund. A cousin of mine came back from the US and he handed me a paper. When his daughter was born somewhere in 2003, 2004, I had gifted her what was then HDFC Equity Fund. Of course, I had forgotten about it. He had forgotten about it. The net asset value of HDFC Equity Fund at that point of time in 2004 was, I think, 89 rupees. And today it's 2020, last time I checked. So in a span of 21 years, the money has gone up by 40 times. And I'm talking about a fund. I'm not talking about individual stocks. I'm not talking about a sectoral index. I'm talking about a broad equity mutual fund which has at any point of time 50, 80, 100 shares. And what all have we not seen? 5 military conflicts between India and Pakistan, global financial crisis, taper tantrum, China going up, China going down. But in all this time, an equity fund has appreciated, ladies and gentlemen, by 40 times. So when we come and recommend quality funds for you, please do buy them and hold them for the longer term. My regret in this conversation, Feroze ji, is that I did not get my cousin to put in a SIP, even of 500 rupees. But as we say, we live and learn. And this time I requested him to put in a SIP. So he was looking at me, he said, "Pehle kyun nahi bataya?" पहले फिरोज जी से बात नहीं होती थी।
नहीं सर मेरे हिसाब से जब उठे तब हुआ सवेरा, एक फिलॉसफी है। और दूसरा हमारी मिस्टेक से अगर कोई और यंगर इन्वेस्टर सीख जाए तो भी द मिस्टेक वेस्ट नहीं गई, जाया नहीं हुई वो। यही दो ही बिनतियां हैं इन्वेस्टर को। ये हम आज अफसोस होता है कि हमने म्यूचुअल फंड को बार बार ट्रैक क्यों किया। आज मेरे क्लाइंट साहब कहते हैं कि यार हर महीने मुझे देखना है। साहब प्रॉपर्टी के दाम आपको हर महीने नहीं देखने। 15 साल पहले खरीदे, आज तक IRR कैलकुलेट नहीं किया 15 सालों में, और म्यूचुअल फंड आपको हर महीने देखना। इतनी नाइंसाफी क्यों करते हो फाइनेंशियल इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स के साथ? उसको भी रहने दो ना, जैसे प्रॉपर्टी को रहने देते हो, सोने को रहने देते हो। तो यही ये मूल मंत्र है फाइनेंशियल मार्केट में पैसे बनाने का। पैसे डालो और भूल जाओ और फिर बाद में योर किड्स विल एंजॉय।
Yes, and one thing I must again mention in this case, while 40 times looks to be a huge number in terms of compounding, ladies and gentlemen, the CAGR for that fund came 19% between January 2004 and May, let's just say April 2025. So I'm just saying how very simple numbers go on to build a huge mountain of wealth, provided you choose right and provided, as Feroze ji says, you remain in that particular fund. My own purchase of HDFC Flexi Cap is 14 rupees. So it's an impossible amount of wealth that has been created by doing absolutely nothing. All we have done is not sold. And that is how life is. And I must again say, I bought that at the fag end of the attacks on the Twin Towers in the US, September 2001. So a slight, how should I say, diversion from what we have been discussed, but that's how wealth is created very easily, provided you let wealth work for itself. Feroze ji.
एब्सोल्युटली शैल जी देखिए किताबें कहती हैं बाय लो सेल हाई, जज्बात आपसे उल्टा करवाता है
क्या
आपको बिल्कुल सर, जब भाग जाती है एसेट हम कहते हैं अब सोना खरीद लूं लाख रुपए में, कोई कहता है बिटकॉइन खरीद लूं लाख रुपए में, तो यही प्रश्न 20,000 पे नहीं आता है, 50,000 पे नहीं आता है. सो जज्बात makes you do exactly the opposite, and I think 90% of the wealth manager's role is to highlight mathematics as against emotion. So you had the steel nerves to buy when there was a twin tower attack. That's what is correct as per the books. No book will tell you sell high, buy high, buy high and sell low. But we're all doing the same thing. I speak to people who say यार मेरे बेचते ही शॉक बढ़ जाता है, मेरे खरीदते ही गिर जाता है, क्योंकि आप जज्बातों से काम कर रहे हैं जी, राइट? आप खरीद तब रहे हैं जब पूरों ने पैसा बना लिया है.
करेक्ट, बिल्कुल सही बात. चलिए, आज कितनी बढ़िया चर्चाएं होती हुई दिख रही हैं. बाजार में थोड़ी शांति है. 19 पॉइंट नीचे निफ्टी 24,360 और निफ्टी बैंक फ्लैट 54,277. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tag Feroze ji on a couple of things that we will put out. Quality funds that he has mentioned, along with the details of their individual holdings and a brief basic backbone data on small cap funds at Invesco and HDFC. Of course, Kotak Emerging Fund in the mid cap space, and HDFC Flexi Cap Fund, SBI Large and Mid Cap Fund. These are the 5 that we'll be highlighting, and of course, Feroze ji has promised me those 5, 7, 10 stocks that outperformed in 2024. Let's see what that list holds. We will update as well. Before we let you go, Feroze ji, one final view on international funds. What looks good there?
शैल जी, सी टू मी आई एम नॉट क्वालिफाइड टू कमेंट. इंटरनेशनल फंड्स इतना मैं रेकमेंड नहीं करता, क्योंकि इंडिया ही समझ में नहीं आ रहा है 160 लोगों की रिसर्च टीम लेके. सो दैट्स व्हाई आई हैव नॉट डन इनफ रिसर्च टू इवन कमेंट. But I would say I'll come back in the next show and tell you, because we believe that India is a good story. If you want to do international investing, you can definitely use the LRS limit and do it. There's nothing very attractive. People went and bought Hansen at premiums or ETFs. Now they're struggling. So we don't recommend international funds to our clients in a nutshell.
Okay. And you mentioned in the early part of the conversation to look at debt funds which have a better tax profile. You mentioned they have 2/3 in debt and 1/3 in arbitrage. Any 1 or 2 funds that you can name from this space?
Shailji, actually we are still to finish one of the research. Okay. We've not put out the recommendation. I was just highlighting. It's called debt plus arbitrage category. There are quite a few funds there, and I'll give you specific recommendations for on Twitter to you, and then we could probably interact.
Okay, no issues.
We're just finishing the research in terms of the yields of the arbitrage component, but the tax advantage remains in the debt plus arbitrage category.
Okay, and would you have a view on the thematic space in the banking sector? 1 or 2 funds there are doing phenomenally well because of 2 rate cuts, and of course the liquidity that was injected in the system by the RBI starting February.
Yes, I believe that 27-28% is of Nifty. The Nifty weight is banks, and I think banks have gone through their pain. Of course, there is a structural pain. India's net interest margins of the banking system are one of the highest in the world, which I don't think justify. So that's the pressure which they are reeling under. And if you look at the P's which they command currently, already factors in that. So I personally think banking as a sector has the potential to beat Nifty. See, when we look at a sector, Shelsa, we always like to see how much more than Nifty can it give We don't look at absolute performances. We look at relative performances. If it can beat Nifty by about 3 to 5% in a year, that's something which can be brought into the portfolio so that you can beat Nifty overall. So I think that is certainly a possibility. And I think Nippon's banking fund is one of the best managed one.
Whose banking fund?
Nippon, sir.
Nippon. Okay, fine. I'll take a look at that as well. Feroze, what are your portfolio? I mean, when you look at how money is flowing into funds and then you analyze how money that they are getting in SIPs is flowing into stocks, what is the gut feel that you are seeing over the last 1 or 2 months, seeing inflows remain constant or higher in top performing funds, and how are they utilizing that money into sectors? What is your gut feel when you see this inflow being deployed in the market?
See, I think as the theme has been domestic centric, I think that's where most of the mutual funds liquid money has gone. Liquid money in the form of their cash holdings has reduced, and their purchases in domestic sectors has gone up. I think that's the theme which people are playing currently, and rightly so, maybe.
Okay, so domestic space is moving up. Anything in the domestic space that you like where money is moving in? Maybe cement.
Yes, I think cement is a little overdone because purchase हो गई है बहुत सारी. अगर आप ownerships देखते हैं तो there's been a lot of inflow already and the prices are where they are. So I would say I think I would it's great to accumulate cement because the kind of capital expenditure from the government side definitely gives it a huge push. If you're looking at 1-2 years, like Shelter you said, it's a great nifty alpha generator. And that's how I think people should look at sectors. They should not look at sectors standalone. They should say, यार अगर कुछ ना करता तो निफ्टी कमाता. कुछ मेहनत करके सेक्टर पिक करके निफ्टी से कितना बीट करूंगा उस आधार पे आपने सेक्टर चुनना है.
Wonderful. So that's also one of the fundamental reasons to look at equity diversified funds, ladies and gentlemen. If you just want nifty returns, you can buy a low cost index fund, but we are in the market for an outperformance over and above nifty, and that should be in the vicinity of 16-17% CAGR. As usual, Feroze ji, it's such a pleasure to listen to you and drill deep into your picks both in the fund space and as also quality research that Anand Rathi Wealth keeps on doing. Thank you so much for your time, and of course I look forward to your tweet on that Nifty small cap 250 research that you've done.